Hello and welcome back to the monthly podcast, Not Overthinking, where we are joined by me and Taimur. Taimur, how are you doing today?
I did good, man. I uh, I feel like I've been very busy the last few weeks. Basically, we've recently moved house, and it's been very far from a smooth house move. Where
Oh,
once we got the keys and looked at the place, it turned out there was like mold in the floorboards, and obviously with like a newborn, that's not what you want. And so then, like, and the landlord, like, the person who owns the flat, like, lives in China or something. The landlord is like lives in China, but she's like got some assistant who like manages the property for her. And so between like having to, yeah, whatever stuff we want to do, for example, get the mold removed, has to go from us to the estate agent to the landlord's assistant, then to the landlord, and the landlord has to approve it because obviously it costs money and stuff like this. So, yeah, we ended up moving in like 2 weeks later than we should have. And then once we got in, we just found out that like the boiler needs to be replaced. So we're not going to have like central heating for a week or two. Um, yeah. Yeah, I ordered like a little bench thing for the entrance area so you can sit on the bench and put your shoes on. Just from one of these online furniture websites. And like one of the pieces was missing. So like I can't build this bench. And I've just got a pile of like wooden planks in there probably for the next couple of weeks. So like pretty much most things that that can kind of go wrong have gone wrong.
mate.
But in the grand scheme of things, it's all trivial. So
So you're
yeah,
in the new house now,
in the new
without
house,
central
yeah,
heating and without a bench to sit on.
yeah, without a bench to sit on for your shoes and without central heating. But they've given us like a bunch of
Do you have
electric heaters.
like
So
showers? Are you a cold shower kind of guy now?
thankfully the hot water was only off for like half a day or something. Anyway, I won't get into the boring details of plumbing and boilers and hot water cylinders and immersion heaters, but basically we do have hot water, so it's like fine.
You also you look about twice as healthy as you did last time we had a pod.
Really?
Yeah.
You think that?
What's going on? What have you been doing?
But before we started the pod, I was thinking, oh man, I'm gonna look so bad. Like I haven't shaved, my hair is too long, so it starts to look a bit stupid.
Oh, I think it's because the hair is
I'm
long.
not getting enough sleep. Oh, really?
Or maybe it's
I
just
mean, yeah, I
you've
need a
got
haircut.
natural. Have you are you lit with natural light rather than screen
Yeah, yeah,
light?
yeah. So I'm in the conservatory, so I've got like tons of natural light coming in.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's why.
Yeah,
Because I feel like the longer hair hides the stuff,
the baldness.
the baldness, quite, and then the natural
Yeah.
light makes you look like you're glowing more so than before.
Oh, thanks, man. But no, I don't think I'm any. I think I'm less healthy than I was like
Really?
two to
So
four
last
weeks ago.
time
Yeah,
you committed to going for more runs and walks and just getting the steps in and maybe going to the
yeah,
gym
yeah.
and any of that stuff. How did that go?
Yeah, so I was in a good place. I was like doing some exercise every day for quite a while. But then once this house move stuff kicked off, then I mean, like, yeah, we've been going on walks and things. Yeah. Nice. That's great. Yeah, I it went well for a bit, but then my whole kind of routine changed and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, now it's less well. But
What?
I think I'm really feeling like I need to get back into like lifting weights, man.
Mm, what makes you say that?
I think I just like I think I just sort of look really small, you know? I think I just look a bit skinny, and I know like a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I was looking not like that. And so it's just kind of sad when you like see yourself in a picture with a bunch of people and you're like, damn, that's what I look like now. You know? Yeah.
So is it purely because you want to look a bit bigger?
Yeah, yeah, purely for visual reasons. But obviously
Okay.
there's health benefits as well, but they're too far down the line.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well,
so that's what's been keeping me busy. Yeah.
Perhaps interesting. I don't know if you've seen this Instagram reel that was doing the rounds in the sort of parenting content niche.
Oh yeah.
But there was apparently this. It was like this voiceover. Basically, kind of apparently there was this like interview with like a child molester guy who would like go after these like little girls, and they asked him when they caught him like, "How do you choose your victims?" And he was like,
Yeah.
"I look at the dad and see how much of a threat he is." Um,
Really?
And based on that, like if the dad is weak, I go after the kid. But if the dad looks like a threat, then it's like it's not worth it. Um,
Wow.
and so I listened to that one.
Bloody hell, mate.
Yeah, I watched that a few months ago, and that had more of an impact on me than I thought it would. Where I was like,
Oh yeah.
this actually, feels like it gives me a. It's not a very tangible in the right now kind of reason, but like
Yeah.
a better reason than just because I want to look jacked to
Yeah.
like take my health seriously and like so I've been doing Muay Thai 3 times a week and like the gym stuff and
Yeah.
yeah, so there's something about having that extra reason as well of like
Yeah,
looking like a threat.
you've been on you're on quite a good grind set for like 2 months now, right? With like the
Yeah,
gymming and the
yeah, 2 3 months. It was my quarterly quest for Q1. As I we had this sort of productivity spark event that a couple tens of thousands of people attended, where we all set our sort of Q1 goals in January, and
yeah.
my Q1 goal was to find some sort of martial arts system, and so been doing Muay Thai.
Wait, why martial arts?
Um, it's something I've been wanting to do for a very long time, and I just had never really gotten around to doing it. I did a bit of kickboxing when we were living in Marylebone, but I was always traveling and always busy, and so didn't
Yeah.
have the calendar space to get into a routine. Whereas now, here in Hong Kong, where I'm like, oh, there's no more excuses. And
Yeah.
I also was kind of thinking that Hong Kong is a relatively safe place, but if anyone starts on me and the family in the streets, it's like I would like to be able to do
Yeah.
something other than run. So that was like a big part of it. And
Nuts.
so my coach is, I told my coach that, yeah, I want to, do it for the fitness and stuff, but really I want to do it for the self-defense. So we've been doing a lot of like, he like randomly hits me and my goal is to block.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, it's not, he's kind of giving me pointers and stuff to be like, okay, when it comes to a street fight, you're not really going to be kneeing people. You're not even really going to be kicking people. But if you can like elbow someone in the face, then apparently the elbow can be a really sharp weapon with like this little bit of the bone.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
can like
Yeah.
cut someone in the face and like knock them out immediately, and sort of you
Yeah.
block, and then you get in their guard, and then you like do the thing, and so he's been kind of
How
giving me a bit of
transferable is this
yeah.
stuff? Because like you see like on these YouTube videos where people are doing these like self-defense, martial arts kind of
Hmm.
like exercises with the instructor. And I'm always just thinking like it's just not how it's going to play out in real life. Like how do you think it's transferable?
To an extent. So I asked this to the coach, and he was like, the only way to prepare for a fight is to actually fight. So
Yeah.
if you do sparring and things,
Yeah.
then it's a little bit more transferable.
So do you do that? Do you spar?
Not yet with anyone other than the coach. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think
Would the
my
coach
take
just
on
let
this
you
is
like
that
let loose on him? Would he just let you like wail on him in a sparring thing, and then he could just like deal with it?
yeah, look. So the first session where we were doing blocking, he was like teaching me the blocking, the block moves, and I was like, dude, come on, like, there's no way this is actually going to work. And he was like, all right, then try and hit me. And he just like sort of stood there doing this, and
Yeah.
and then he would do that and like kind of bring his leg up a little bit and then do that and then do that and just sort of slap my hand away. And I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, I'm actually trying to punch this guy in the face, and
Yeah.
like it's just not connecting because he's just like standing there. He's like this short Chinese guy, and he's just like doing this, and I'm like, okay, that's really cool. That was the
Okay, that's
that was
sick.
the moment
That's
where I
sick.
was like, if I could do that, then at least I'm not going to get punched.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then also part of the training is knowing that you can take a punch. So at some point
Mm.
he's going to start actually punching me. So we've
Yeah.
been starting doing a little bit where it's like you have to like tense the abs and like tighten the core and stuff, and just know that you can take a punch.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that in the event of a street fight, I mean the correct response is always to run away. But if you have a wife and a kid around, then the response is no longer to run away. It's to like get them to run away and then
Yeah.
hold the door, as it were.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it'll be better than nothing. And yeah, maybe it's not 100% transferable, but I'm hoping it's more than 0% transferable. So I don't want to let perfect be the enemy of good enough here.
Nice. Sounds
Yeah.
great.
The other good thing, and why, if anyone's listening to this, the other good thing is that as a desk jockey, desk warrior, keyboard warrior, is like this kind of posture with like whatever. I have very tight hips, and the hips hips and hamstrings get super tight and super weak from just sort of sitting on a chair all day and things like that. And a martial art that involves kicking is like a forcing function to
Oh,
get hip mobility. And hip mobility is quite important for like injury and fall prevention when you're older and stuff like that. And also
yeah.
helps like with the lower back because the lower back gets more strained if like the hip muscles aren't doing the thing. Um,
Mm.
and also it trains the core because it's like we do planks and he sort of kicks me while I'm down doing a plank. And stuff like that trains the core as well, which is also then translates into like health benefits later in life. And so for all those
Yeah,
reasons, I think for you, I think step one is to get out of the house a little bit more and get the steps in.
yeah,
Once you've got the steps in, you go steps
yeah.
in
With
plus
the,
gym, and then once you've got gym, you
I,
can maybe do whatever.
I think, yeah, I think this the steps is very doable, and we've moved actually quite close to a couple of close friends of ours. They also had a baby around the same time, and so the dad and I went on like a dad walk yesterday at like, I don't know, 9 a.m., where we just like walked the babies in the pram, went to get a coffee, and kind of walked around and came back. So I think, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more like baby walks and sort of dad walks built into the routine. So I'm not too worried about getting the steps in. I think now, yeah, I think that actually has just been organically happening, even
Very good.
amidst the move and stuff like that. But I think now I need to build some strength into it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And if you have the baby tied to you, that's like rocking, but with an actual child.
yeah. I mean, I'm a bit worried about that. Like, I've had the baby on me for like a few hours a day, like every day for the last 6 months now, and I think my back is like getting pretty messed up.
Hmm.
So I don't like. I just, yeah, I'm a bit worried about my back at the moment.
Oh, interesting. But you
Yeah.
normally have the baby in front. Is there a way to put a baby behind you?
I think when she's a bit bigger, you can do that. We tried it a few days ago. Wasn't
Yeah.
like super comfy for her and stuff. I think
Hmm.
when they're bigger, you can do the back one. But yeah, I
Nice.
think maybe having the baby on me has like kind of messed up my back a bit. But
Yeah.
anyway.
But yeah, how's dad life been
So
treating
yeah,
you?
that's
Otherwise.
yeah. So that's okay. Okay, so the house move has been keeping me busy, and then the other thing, basically, she's developed some allergies, unfortunately. Um, and so she's like allergic to peanut and to sesame, and a little bit to egg. And so now we're trying to deal with that. So
Mate,
just this might
you
actually
know
be
why
interesting
this
for
is?
the audience. Why?
You know why this is?
Why?
Too hygienic.
Not quite. No, no. So let me explain. Let me explain.
Okay,
So
what's going on?
for for people in the audience who are sort of soon to be parents or whatever, basically there is some relatively recent science that suggests that in order to okay, actually, just maybe to backtrack a little bit. Previously, the prevailing theory was that in order to stop a kid developing an allergy to something, you need to make sure they don't get exposed to that thing. So, if you don't want them to be allergic to peanuts, then don't expose them to peanuts, and then they're not gonna like their immune system isn't gonna like accidentally think it's something dangerous or something like this. Okay, so that was the prevailing wisdom for a very long time. In recent times, i.e., like the last sort of 10 to 15 years, it now seems to be that actually the way to prevent someone from developing an allergy is to expose them to the allergen as early as possible. So from 4 months of age, you actually want to expose them to different allergens, but crucially, you don't want to expose them through the skin. You want them to ingest the allergen and therefore be exposed like through the gut, essentially. And this is obviously like quite sort of fluffy and hand wavy, but the idea, the way people think about it is like, okay, if you're like eating this stuff regularly, then your body doesn't think, oh, this is some like dangerous thing that I need to like, flare up against. But if you're like just getting occasionally exposed through the skin to these like proteins, then your body thinks like, oh, we need to like fight this thing or whatever. All right, pretty hand wavy, but like there is decent sort of empirical evidence to suggest that early exposure to allergens through ingestion significantly reduces the chance of developing an allergy like long term. And so, um, you know, given that Lucia is a doctor, she's just like very into this stuff. She kind of knew about all of this, and so I think we're pretty cutting edge. I don't think like too many. I think in the UK, there's not many people doing this. I think in the US, it's more of a thing. It's more established. I think in Australia, they tried. The government's been trying to push it. Um, but basically, yeah, since 4 months, we've been exposing her to like egg and nuts and things like this, but through like making her eat little bits of it. Um, and unfortunately, she has an allergy. She has developed like an allergy to peanut and to egg and to sesame. And so now it's like, okay, well, we caught it early. We're like doing the exposure thing. If we're pretty like hardcore about it and we like keep up this exposure thing for like the next sort of 1 to 2 years, then it can like kind of keep the allergy at bay and stop it from becoming like a serious allergy. And so now, sort of every day, like every day, everyone just sort of has a to-do list of things, right? Like, let's say if you don't have kids, every day your to-do list might be like, okay, I need to like go to work or whatever, and maybe a few days a week on your to-do list is like, okay, I need to go to the gym or whatever, right? And then once you have, and then maybe occasionally it's like, okay, I should probably like do the laundry or something like that. I'd say like pre kids, you have like a pretty short to-do list. Everything's quite flexible. If you don't do the laundry one day, it's fine. You can always do it the next day. I think then when you have kids, you now have like actually every single day you have like a bigger to-do list of stuff that you have to do just to like maintain the baby. And now with this like allergen protocol stuff that we're doing, now every day there's like even more things on the to-do list where every day we have to have like 3 to 4 different like sessions. I've started calling them struggle sessions of allergenic. So we like mix up the sort of 8 different nut butters, like peanut butter and cashew butter and whatever, and put it into a mix and like feed it to her with like a syringe. But yeah, basically because there's we're trying to do egg, we're trying to do some nuts, we're trying to do sesame, we're trying to do like soya. I mean, yeah, there's just a bunch of these allergens, and so 3 sessions a day, 3 to 4 sessions a day. So yeah, it really adds to the daily to-do list, and like every day, like the first thing when we wake up is like, it's not like, oh, cool, let's have a nice relaxing morning. Let's get some nice breakfast. I'm like, yeah, as soon as we're both up, it's like, okay, let's do egg, you know? and then, we kind of feel good for a couple of hours, depending on how that went. And then, in the next wake window, like after she's had a nap or whatever, it's like, okay. And you kind of have these looming over you until the rest of the day, until you get them done. And so once you've gotten through the egg session, the nut session, the sesame, once you've gone through them, it's like, oh my God, we can just do anything now. And it's like 6 p.m. and your bedtime's like 8 p.m. So, yeah, so that's,
Sorry. Is that how it feels?
So, yeah, that is how it feels. Yeah, once we're done with the sessions, then it's like, oh my God, there's so much possibility out there in the world, But yeah, it's pretty new stuff. Like most people we know are not doing this, but basically the NHS do recommend it. It's just that, like, I don't know, like if Lucia weren't a doctor and weren't on top of this stuff, I wouldn't have known about it. Like we just wouldn't have been doing this stuff. And she's also naturally predisposed to being allergic to stuff because I have hay fever, which kind of increases the risk of her being allergic to stuff. So yeah, I think like 5 to 10 years from now, this is going to be much more mainstream in the UK. Right now, it's like not very mainstream, and I think also because because it's still early days for the science on it. Like, there's probably we don't fully understand how much of a difference does it make if you do it like every day versus every other day, whatever. Like we don't fully understand all the details around it, and so there's just like some studies that were done, and I think because we don't fully understand it, the medical advice is pretty like vague, where it's like you should do this as much as possible, basically. As early as possible, you should start doing this and just get her to eat as much of it as possible, something like this. And so, like, if you're a parent, you're like, okay, that's not, like, super helpful because, like, you also have to be pragmatic about it. Like, you also have, like, the rest of your life to crack on with. And, yeah, like, it's vague enough that that, like, depending on your psychology around this stuff, you could always feel like, oh man, like we could be doing more, or like if one session didn't go well, you could always you could feel like, oh no, the egg didn't go well, it's really bad or whatever. I think maybe like in sort of 10 years, once there's a lot more data on this, we'll have a clearer sense of like what the parameters actually really need to be, and like what how bad is it if you like skip a week or skip a few days, whatever. So
yeah, sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bit more like
What's what's your
What's
understanding
that?
of the prevailing?
I mean, Lucia just said who's actually dealing with it. She is mostly dealing with it. You know, like, I mean, I do it a bunch as well. Like, yeah, if I like, I'm home on the weekends, and if if I'm working from home, I'll usually be around for like some of it.
Right.
Um, yeah, but we've got a nanny for a few weeks, just like 9 to 5 on weekdays, just so that she can help administer these things. Yeah.
What's your understanding of? Okay, two questions. Firstly, what's it like having a nanny? And secondly, what's your understanding of the prevailing narrative around why allergies form in the first place? Like, is that something that you've looked into?
My understanding of okay, so on the nanny thing, yeah, like I think it's good. I mean, yeah, she comes 9 to 5 on weekdays. I think it kind of yeah, it's definitely really nice for Lucia to have an extra person around to do the stuff that otherwise I would be doing, like the allergens and even apart from that, right? Like there's a lot of things on the to-do list, and so like if you're having to do the allergen stuff, then you're not doing the other stuff on the to-do list, and so just something having someone around who can like you know do the kind of make sure the laundry gets done and that kind of thing,
Okay, so
it makes a big
on that note, like, what is the stuff on the to-do list? Like, what are the sorts of things you actually have to sort of tick off on a daily basis to just maintain the baby? I'm asking for a
Yeah, I'd
friend.
say now with the baby, there is laundry to do every single day, basically, because she gets through like probably 2 to 3. Yeah, she gets through like 2 to 3 outfits in a day. She usually has like a sort of nighttime outfit, and then kind of a daytime outfit. So that's like the best case scenario. And then on an average day, either she will have like shat herself, or um, or she will have like thrown up on herself or like spit up sufficiently on herself where we're like, okay, we should probably change this and not have her like festering
Yeah.
in her own like sick or something. So like there's like 2 to 4 of her outfits. Then there's probably like four 4 to 5 of her bibs because she's doing a lot of drooling at the moment, and particularly with the allergen stuff. Like if we give her some allergen and then she like spits it up or like drools it out onto the bib, then we need to change the bib because we don't want that rubbing against her skin, whatever. So yeah, there's like 2 to 4 of her outfits, probably like 4 to 5 of her bibs, and then there's just kind of like uh, there's a small bibs, and we have bigger bibs for like when we cover her whole body for like the serious struggle sessions, and then there's just like our clothes. Um, so yeah, but there's basically kind of like a daily laundry that needs to happen. There's the like three
I'm
to
sorry.
four times.
A quick question on that front. Do you just do wash and dry in one thing, or is it like washing the thing and then drying, hanging them up, or like how much of a
Yeah, so in the
like,
new place, the washer and dryer are separate. In the old place, they was combined, which was quite nice. In the new place, they're separate, but they're like next to each other. So yeah, you need to kind of do that. And then it's also quite funny. It's like in a we've got this like weird sort of trapdoor basement situation. So like the washer and dryer are like in this weird basement. Um, yeah. So then there's the laundry. Then there's like sort of in a given day, the baby will do like I don't know 6 to 8 feeds, maybe sometimes up to 10 feeds or something. So yeah, they'll be like making sure you're like doing the feeds, making sure that you're getting her napping. Um, yeah, I'd say that's kind of the main baby stuff, and then probably like bathing her every few days. Um, yeah, and then there's just kind of the sort of rest of life stuff, where like yeah, I already mentioned breastfeeding. This is shouting out from the rest of the house. Yeah, and then there's the rest of life stuff like breakfast and lunch and dinner and groceries and just usual stuff. But yeah,
so?
I think it's fine without the allergens. The allergens kind of like means that like Lucia can kind of spend a whole day just going from like task to task, literally like the whole day of just like maintaining the sort of yeah stuff, just
Mate,
maintenance.
mate. Okay. And so, are you working from home these days, or are you going to the office? Or like, what's the sitch? And how does your work interface with these kind of
I think we're
familial?
very lucky that my work is very flexible, where like I can work from home, I can like take time out in the day to do something and just kind of make up for it, whatever. So my work is very flexible, which has helped a lot. And so usually, yeah, on days where I go into the office, which is maybe like it hasn't been loads during the move and stuff. I've had a bunch of travel actually in the last couple of weeks, work related for like a couple of days at a time. But apart from that, I've mostly been working from home. And then even on the days where I do go into the office, I'll kind of like be at home until about 10 and then kind of go in after that. So I can kind of sort stuff out in the morning and hand over the baby to the nanny these days, that kind of stuff. So that's been helpful. If I like had a job where I had to be like in the office at 9 a.m. and working till like in the office till like 6 or 7 p.m. and then I'm getting home after that, I think it would have been much harder, I think.
So what? I kind of I ask you this question sporadically every few weeks. So I'll ask it again. How does kind of feelings of meaning and fulfillment? How are those as it relates to having a baby?
I don't know. Yeah, I always struggle with this question. Like, I don't feel that different. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, maybe let's talk about this meaning and fulfillment thing. I'm hearing a lot of people talk about meaning and like, I want more meaning in my life or whatever.
Mm.
And, everyone's like, oh, there's this meaning crisis and, whatever. Like, how do you conceive of that? Okay,
I have a
so
whole,
for example,
yeah,
yeah. So okay, yeah. Let me give you an example. So
yeah.
yeah. Oh man, there's a massive bee next to me. Um, I was, one of my friends who's kind of a solopreneur. He's kind of like, doesn't really have to work, you know, and is a tech guy, whatever. I think he's had like quite a meaning crisis
Mm.
just from his like life setup of like,
Yeah.
young guy got like a small SaaS business that makes a bunch of money and can like support a nice lifestyle for him, and he doesn't really need to do much about it. Um, doesn't need a job. Would probably be kind of pointless having a job. Can explore whatever hobbies he wants. So he does like triathlons and all of this kind of stuff. And you know, yeah, like on paper, you look at this guy's life and you think, man, this guy's made it. He's like 27 years old. Doesn't have to work. He can work if he wants. He can build cool stuff because he enjoys it or whatever. He literally has complete ownership over his time. He doesn't have kids or something. Doesn't like have responsibilities in that sense. He can just do whatever he wants whenever he wants broadly. And I think he's struggled with it a lot over the last couple of
Mm.
years. And he recently took on a part-time job to like try and get so well yeah so when we were talking about it, he's like, yeah, this job, like this, like having this part-time job at this like tech company and like a tech startup, so it's still like techies, the same kind of stuff. It's not like he's you know flipping burgers or something, just to pass the time. It's stuff he enjoys, with people he likes hanging
Yeah.
out with and all the rest of it. But yeah, he found that like getting this part-time job and like working with a real team of people rather than just like having this business that he basically runs himself, that kind of runs itself, and he doesn't really, having a team of people, having people like relying on him for stuff,
Yeah.
helping other people out with stuff, supporting, he was talking about how like he's just gotten like so much meaning from this thing. Um, and I think I struggle to understand what people mean by it. One way I think about it is, do you remember like back when we were sort of maybe like 14, 15, and there was like some periods where we were both like really into WoW, and you'd kind of like, WoW meaning World of Warcraft, and you kind of wake up, you'd be like eager to get out of bed, right? You'd be eager to get out of bed as early as possible because you were on a mission. You had this thing to do, and that's like, I think that's the kind of like the most explicit sort of feel like, if I think of like, okay, what's like a feeling I can relate to that might be what this sort of meaning thing is that people are on about. That's
Mm.
the most sort of like in your face, like, man, I'm on a mission. I got shit to do. Like I'm like bouncing out of bed to get on World of Warcraft. That was like, peak meaning
Mm.
in a sort of like in your face kind of sense. Right. But
Mm.
yeah, is that it? Is that kind of what you think people are getting at, what you're getting at with this? And then, there's more like sort of, um, diffuse background, you know, sense of meaning that, just what, yeah, there's kind of like a much more diffuse background sense of meaning that like you get from just your outlook on the world and just the picture in your head of how the world is and stuff like that. But the in your
Yeah.
face, in the moment meaning, I think the wow thing really sums it up for me.
Yeah. This is something I'm actively investigating at the moment. So for me, I can relate to what this friend of yours is going through to a degree. Did you see the stuff that the Loom founder has also been
Yeah, yeah,
posting
yeah. I
recently?
read that
Yeah.
post. Yeah, 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 yeah,
The guy sells Loom for like $1 billion or something absurd. And then he writes a long tweet, thread, Medium post, Substack post, whatever,
yeah. Just blog post. Yeah,
blog post about how he's rich and he can do whatever he wants and his life has no meaning. And that also sort of there was quite a lot that resonated with me in that as well. And this is something I've been increasingly speaking to people about. I think on one level, the meaning question is it's so nice when you wake up in the morning with something to look for, a fire that gets you out of bed in the morning.
yeah,
This is sort of the stuff we were talking about back in like December, January.
yeah. With Derek, yeah, the fire, yeah,
Yeah,
having
where
the
I
fire.
was trying to find this fire where, yeah, kind of like trying to rekindle the flames of World of Warcraft addiction aged 14, where it's
Yeah,
like, I can't wait to get out of bed to
yeah,
continue questing through the Ghostlands on my Warlock. It's like, oh,
yeah, yeah,
man is on a mission.
yeah,
There's also a sense of a realization. So okay, so I've also been reading a lot of Substacks from people who are parents in this sort of new parent kind of thing, and what a common thread that I've seen is that before having kids, I used to question kind of my purpose and or meaning. Since having kids, the question doesn't even cross it. The question doesn't really cross my mind anymore. I also think that there is something to be said for. So I think the question of meaning in 70 years ago would have been meaningless. And where was I reading this somewhere? It's like if you'd asked a granddad, how much meaning do you get in your life? The question wouldn't compute because
yeah,
it's just what do you mean? I get up, I do my duty, I go to work, I provide for the family, I hang out with the family, and that's life, right?
yeah,
But I think in a world where duty is sort of the dial on duty kind of dials down in the liberal West, and the to use a phrase that you'll like, the kind of worshipping at the altar of the self and what one feels like doing gets
yeah,
dialed up. You then end up in a weird situation where if I zoom into the microcosm of my life as a YouTuber, I can in fact just make whatever videos I want. I can just do whatever I want. But there's something about being able to do whatever I want where the master of me is my own feelings on a given day, which is kind of nice in some ways where, oh, wow, I can get up, the whole day is empty, and I can just literally do whatever, whenever like
yeah,
inspiration strikes. But inspiration doesn't often strike. And on days where instead I have a project to work towards, I'm on a mission. Like when I was working on the book,
yeah,
writing a book is just as arbitrary a project as like creating a YouTube video. It's all just like,
yeah,
we're trying to find our own sources of meaning.
yeah,
But knowing that like, hey, I'm working towards this bigger thing,
yeah,
I've got to put in the hours on the book, in a way was very like liberating because I didn't need to think too hard about it. Just like I get up,
yeah,
I do my 4 hours, and then I only really have the existential question for 2 hours before I get Zoom meetings back to back, and then it's the evening,
yeah,
and then
yeah, 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 yeah,
people, and then it's like, I don't need to think about it too hard.
yeah,
But an empty calendar encourages the thing of like, why am
yeah,
I why am I even doing this thing? I've got enough
yeah,
money. Like, what's even the purpose of work? What's the point and stuff? And actually, mutual friend Paul Millard gifted me a dozen copies
six copies.
of his new book, Good Work, because he knows I like to give this sort of stuff out. And this is kind of an exploration of, when you can
Yeah,
do when you can do whatever you want. A follow up to the dozen copies he's gifted me for The Pathless Path, which so The Pathless Path is the book that I hand out to people when they're like burnt out in their corporate job, and it's like, okay, have this book.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and then when they realize that they can do whatever they want, this is the next one where it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
actually doing nothing is not the thing.
Yeah,
Finding your own good work. What is the work to you that is like worth
yeah,
doing? We should maybe get
yeah,
Paul back on the pod to kind of talk about these new ideas.
yeah,
And so yeah, it's something I've been questioning a lot. Like, what actually is the point of work? And I'm sort of really engaging with that question seriously. Like, what do we mean by work? Like, how do we actually define it? Like, what does this look like? How does it look like through time? People have opined about it, but I ask you the meaning question because a thing that I recurrently hear from some parents is, whoa, there's this now in the same way as like having a character to level up in World of Warcraft gives you something to do. It's like having a kid and being like building the family.
yeah, yeah,
Is the impression I get from some people is that it feels sort of like that, where it's like, oh, I'm on a mission and I'm doing this thing, and I don't need to think too hard about meaning and purpose and questioning why I'm
yeah,
here
yeah,
and stuff because I have this thing in front of me that needs
yeah,
allergen testing and stuff.
yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. So I get that. Yeah, one thing I've been thinking about related to this is that, yeah. So I think you're definitely right that like in the sort of if you're living a life of abundance where like your material conditions are very comfortable
Yeah,
and you have a lot of control over how you're spending your time and stuff like that, like naturally, like if you're busy all day having to produce those material conditions, like working in the factory 12 hours a day to like put food on the table for your family and your 5 kids and whatever, right? Like you just have less, you don't have the time to worry about this stuff. Like it's clear what you need to do. You need to grind. You need to like make it happen. So I think you're absolutely right that like um yeah, in the sort of abundant lives that we're fortunate to live, it comes up more. But at the same time, like yeah, I mean, okay, so this is we're getting at the really cutting edge of of the dialectic on this. But basically, right, like the okay, so I think the discourse has roughly like panned out like this over the last like say last couple of decades on this stuff, where the sort of the sort of the naive view would be, well, modernity is straightforwardly just amazing because we just have like much better lives than people had before. We have all these material comforts. We're safer, in theory. All this kind of stuff. Like we have just made progress in all the areas, and modern life is just straightforwardly much better than it was before. All right, so that's kind of the naive view, and then there's like the kind of pushback against that, which is now becoming mainstream. I think it's quite a mainstream pushback of like, yes, we have all of these comforts, etc., but amongst all of that, something deep and profound has been lost. We've lost this like sense of meaning. We're all these like atomized individuals now. We've kind of taken this freedom stuff too far. There's all these mental health crises going on that's related, etc., etc. So that's kind of like the pushback to that. But I think I think where there needs to be nuance, and like I totally agree with pushback. I'm like fully on board with that. So I think the mainstream pushback is right, but I think there's a danger of kind of romanticizing too much that like people in the past, they kind of yes, they were like grinding in the mines and the factories and out in the fields, but they were doing it to support their families, and therefore their lives were just like filled with meaning and purpose while they were doing like I think we shouldn't have that view of it, because like I'm sure it was like a lot of drudgery, and like and even today, right? So I have a friend of mine who's kind of a bit older. He's like maybe 50 or something, and he was kind of saying that yeah we were yeah he was kind of saying that, look, when you talk to a lot of people once they have like families and stuff. Okay. Yeah, so I think you can also live a life of duty where like your time is all filled up because you're having to do all of these things, and like yeah, ostensibly you're doing it to support your family or whatever, you're doing it because you have to, etc. But like that can also be quite a bad situation. And this guy, this friend was saying that once people have families and stuff, when you speak to a lot of people, sort of like guys in their 40s, like 30s, 40s, and you're like, oh, what are you up to these days, etc. you know, the answer is, there's kind of a trap where the answer for like the rest of your life is going to be, oh, just busy with work and kids and family, how it is, kind of thing. And like they're just, their time is just filled up because of work and kids and family, etc. Um, but that doesn't, that doesn't, that's, that doesn't mean that they're like flourishing or something, like
Yeah.
there's there's a way for that time to get filled up with duties and responsibilities, where like, yeah, sure, you're not having to face the question every day because like your time is filled up and there's always the next thing to be doing, but also like, you're not living that meaningful a life. Even if you ask someone, they wouldn't say, oh yeah, like my life is just like full of meaning and purpose, and like I get up every day like loving to do this stuff or something. You can kind of fall into a life of drudgery, and just moving from one thing to the next that that maybe has to be done, but like it's not necessarily like meaning. So
Uh,
yeah, I
yeah.
don't think we should, we
Yeah. I
shouldn't
mean, I'm
romanticize
I'm not making the
that
case that
kind of
we should
grinding too
romanticize it.
much.
Yeah, I think one of the questions I think about a lot is just this question of like, okay, but would you go back? Dot dot dot. It's like, I might opine about kind of the lack of meaning in sometimes making YouTube videos. I might opine about the lack of meaning intrinsic in being able to do whatever I want. But would I choose to go back to medicine? Absolutely not. Like,
Yeah, but
our
was there
mutual
that much
friend.
meaning? There probably just wasn't that much meaning in the medicine thing, right?
No, quite. Yeah, no, exactly. Which is why I'm
It's a
saying
job.
that. Yeah, agreed. So it's like sim. But equally, if you ask the people who are like, marriage, work, kids, would you go back to pre-marriage, pre-kids, or do you wish you didn't have the kids, or do you wish you weren't married and you actually just had all the time to yourself to play Elden Ring and do whatever creatively enthused you? They probably would say no. I wouldn't want that. Like I'm actually
Yeah, yeah,
quite
no, no, yeah, yeah,
happy with
yeah, yeah,
my
yeah,
yeah.
for sure. You wouldn't want to give those things up, but I think you would still, like there are tons of people who are married with kids, like in middle age, where they're, you still have to grapple with feelings of like, oh man, like, you know, was this like the right career for me? Like I've kind of been doing
Mm.
this job a while. Like have I kind of
Yeah, I
been,
mean,
you
100%.
still you still grapple with all of this stuff. So yeah, I guess my main point is it's not as simple as like, oh well, the time just needs to be filled, because the time does get, the time will get filled with these various responsibilities, um and there are still things you'll grapple with. You won't grapple with like, okay, I think maybe the dilemma that someone like you or someone like my friend, um is the dilemma is kind of like, look, I can literally do anything. How am I supposed to make a decision about what to do?
Mm.
Like there's like infinite possibilities. I could do this thing. I could do this other thing, which seems just as good. That thing might seem better. It's kind of that problem. But I think like just having kids and like having a job that you have to go to does not like solve it.
Uh, okay.
Like
I mean,
there are still
totally
like
agree with you.
existential questions that will come up from time to time. They'll definitely, I think like spending time with your kids it will definitely be like a source of meaning that you have, where if you didn't have the kids, you wouldn't have that source of meaning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's not just about filling up the time with responsibilities or something.
Yeah, this is something that Izzy's been looking into quite a lot as well, in terms of like women who gave up the career to raise the family, sort of thing, and the impression I get from hearing her summarize the reading that she's done on this, so it's like very very third hand information, but it's like
Yeah.
for a good chunk of women, they are glad they deprioritized the career to focus on the family because the family brought a lot of meaning. And at the same time, they're sort of the work category of their life which is like I'm making a difference in the world. I'm like doing a thing. I'm
Yeah.
improving my skills. I'm like generating economic value, depending on how you feel about that.
Yeah.
That thing also sort of felt like it sort of they lost something.
Yeah.
And one regret that you sometimes hear in this is that, I'm glad I deprioritized work to focus on the kids, but I wish I didn't give it up completely. I wish I had
Yeah.
gone part time
Yeah.
or done a freelance thing or kept up my skills or just had something else to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that kind of, yeah, I suppose it's sort of like just like different realms of life, really. Like as you said a few months ago, it's like, yeah, the addition of the kid adds a thing to your life, but you still have the work category, you still have the family category, you still have the friends category, you still have the trying to roughly take care
Yeah.
of my health category. It's just you've got another category here, which is I've got a baby
Yeah.
that needs maintenance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know, healthy balanced life involves like, feeling good across all elements, maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Bros search for meaning. That's the
Process for me.
that's
Yeah.
the next book.
Like,
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
actually
think
have
that, that
a,
I
a
think I
bunch
think
of
that
books like
rings true.
literally on the bookshelf about this. So we've got Build the Life You Want by Arthur Brooks and Oprah Winfrey that talks about enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning. We've got The Happiness of Pursuit by Chris Guillebeau that basically argues that like having a project to work towards in each camp of your life is like the key thing. Or What Are You Doing with Your Life by Jay Krishnamurti, got right over there, which is more of a spiritual type thing. What's Your Dream by Simon Squibb. Man, The Pathless Path. Actually, quite a lot of my reading these days has been
Yeah.
about
So
this.
yeah. So what have you learned from the reading? Like, I'm always curious. Yeah, because I'm always curious. You're always posting like some new book that's roughly of that genre of like, you know, this is how to think about your life, kind of thing. Like, what are the learnings, if any? Well, actually, can we go back to the original question of like, how would you? So I kind of threw out the World of Warcraft example where like you're eager to
Yeah.
get out of bed to like do your mission, go on your quest. Are there other like examples? Like, how would you describe the feeling of having meaning? Because I'm never super clear what people are talking about.
I felt I had a lot of meaning. So, okay, I wonder if we can come to this through pointing at it through different examples. So, I felt like I had a lot of meaning when I was directing the Adam Brooks pantomime in medical school. And I often think of that, like I did a few sessions with a life coach, and one of the things that life coaches do is that they get you to clarify your values. And one of the ways you can figure out what your values are, the things that you value, is by
Yeah.
looking at experiences in your life that you found particularly meaningful or fulfilling, and
Yeah.
sort of looking at what they had in common. And so directing this hospital pantomime thing, where it's like working with a bunch of super talented people in person towards this goal that was bigger than any one of us. It wasn't making money. It was purely for charity. It wasn't about the money. It was just like being able to work with cool people on a big
Yeah.
project type
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That felt very meaningful.
Yeah.
Similarly,
That's sick.
in like the early days of when I'd left medicine and was just slowly building this team, and like going to WeWork in Cambridge with like Angus and Elizabeth, and then like our friend Matthew would join, and then any other friends at uni who were doing PhDs and stuff might come and hang out. And like I would look forward to driving to WeWork every day in the morning with some kind of sense of mission of like, I'm doing this thing, building this business stuff around the time is like we released our YouTuber Academy course, which was doing really well. It's like, oh, we're building this thing, and I'm working with people who I like hanging out with in person.
Yeah.
And there's something about that like is a nice like
Yeah.
those two commonalities.
Yeah, so I agree that like things are more fulfilling. Like the kinds of stuff that I also find fulfilling is like working on some sort of shared project with a group of people that you enjoy working with, that like you collaborate well with. It's an amazing feeling. I agree.
Yeah.
But what I'm asking is like from your I'm not asking you to take some like third person perspective and describe the attributes of the periods of your life in which you had meaning or something, I'm saying from your first person perspective, like what was that feeling? For example, well, one example is that like it's the feeling of like, oh, I can't wait to get out of bed. It's like 7 a.m. and I don't want to have a lie-in. I'm like eager to get out of bed and play World of Warcraft.
I think it is that. It's I think it's just how you describe it. It's the feeling of being on a mission.
Mm. Yeah.
I remember having times when we were living in Marylebone when with you and you and Lucia, where I'd wake up and I would be almost impatient doing my skincare, like in the morning, being like,
Nice.
oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like Bob and Tintin and Saf and Angus are around, and like, oh, I wonder what other team members
Yeah.
are around. We're gonna go and we're gonna be like grinding on some videos and like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, and then I can carve out 4 hours in the morning. I'm gonna go to the Pickled Hen and just sit there on the laptop grinding on the book.
Mm. Yeah. That's cool.
I had a period when I was, I was in like Bali for like 2 weeks doing a talk, and I just stayed for an extra 13 days just because why not? And I was working on the book, and I was looking forward to waking up each morning so that I
Mm.
could go to the local cafe and just sit there on my laptop all day. And I think
Nice.
is I think that's like the thing, which I don't have 100% of the time these days. I have it maybe like 20% of days. Often when team members are here in person, or if like
Yeah. In person
you
makes a
know
big difference. Yeah.
Pablo was over for the last 2 weeks, Angus and the team were over for the last 3 weeks. This kind of stuff. It just makes it way more nice to be like.
Yeah.
And then even when, like for example, knowing that like okay, there's a 10 a.m. start time where the team gets here. Cool. So I'm going to wake up at 8. I'm going to go for my run. Going to do my little like
Yeah.
cold plunge and Huberman bro kind
Yeah.
of thing, and then I'm going to get. There's something about that feels like meaningful. Is
Mm.
that the feeling? Do you so to what extent do you get that kind of feeling as it relates to the kid, or not really?
I don't get that. I don't get that as it relates to the kid.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, there's fleeting moments of it. Like, it's really nice when she gets up in the morning. Like, so I get up before her,
Oh,
and then I take her
forgot,
when she gets up. Yeah.
forgot the question. The question is, to what extent do you look forward to getting home from work so that you can like interact with the kid?
Yeah, the thing is, I don't have a like going to work, coming back from work, and I've been out all. It's rare. Like
But like
if
when
I've
the
gone
days
on
you're
a
at the
trip,
office, or like you're traveling to Berlin or something, it's
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. I'd say then I do look forward to coming back, seeing her, interacting with her and stuff. And in the mornings, like I do look forward to like, oh, she's gonna be awake now, and I'll like, play with her and stuff. Yeah. Um. Yeah, I do look forward to that. But it's like it's quite fleeting, like I look forward to seeing her in the morning. She gives me a big smile. She's like
hmm,
really playful and stuff like that. But then after like 15 minutes, it's like, okay, cool. Like
yeah, we're gonna
ready to
crack
go
on.
back on, ready to crack on, really. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I think what people are getting at, or at least I think what I'm getting at with the meaning thing is not just the fleeting feeling of like looking forward to doing something, but I think it's also a more like a bit more of a global-ish assessment of like
mm,
I mean one of the other things I've been just to cite another thing, sort of the global feeling of meaning comes from basically two things: growth and contribution. That's like one hot take out there,
yeah,
where it's like the soul is fulfilled, like the ego is fulfilled by certainty, variety, connection, and significance, the four
yeah,
needs of the personality or the ego. But the soul is fulfilled
yeah,
by growth and contribution. And so when you have
yeah,
growth and contribution, and in a way you can tell the story of your own life
mm,
in a sense of like there is an arc of growth and there is an arc
yeah,
of contribution, then it's like that combination feels like
yeah,
meaningful. And I think
yeah,
in periods of my life where I felt like if I were, I mean, I wouldn't even have thought to ask the question of like, is this meaningful right now? But had I asked that question,
mm,
if looking back, I think there were times where I had this feeling of growth, the feeling of contribution. There was this sense of connection of like shared
yeah,
project, building with other people and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think the story thing is a good description. Um, Yeah, I think if you see the stuff that you're doing as fitting into like the wider narrative arc of your life, then that like, it
Cool.
gives you that feeling. Yeah.
Relatedly, there was a really good Substack that I read the other day. Mate, Substack is so good these days.
That's good Substacks. Yeah, yeah,
Substack scrolling on the toilet has now become my main thing.
yeah. Really? Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, it's
fair
actually
enough.
so sick. Like,
Yeah.
earlier today, Izzy and I spent an hour getting to inbox zero on the reels that she's been sending me over the last month because I just haven't really opened Instagram.
Wow, that's sick. I'd be
So it's
really
like we're
annoyed. I'd be really annoyed if Lucia didn't see my reels for a month. But yeah,
nice. Yeah, I think is a little bit more enlightened than that, but it became a thingy for connection. Anyway, Substack, really good Substack around again zooming into the microcosm of being a creator, which is I think
yeah,
has parallels to stuff. Um, the I can't remember who was by, but basically the point that this Substack was making was that as a creative, you want to be doing things that have heaviness to them. Heaviness, and sort of he or she, I think it might have been a she, described like writing a weekly newsletter as like I've been writing my newsletter for 8 years now, and I've written 5 books worth of a newsletter, but it doesn't feel like I've
yeah,
written 5 books. It just feels like I've written like a newsletter every week, because
yeah,
each newsletter is just like a snowflake,
yeah,
and
yeah,
multiple snowflakes do not in fact coalesce into a snowball. Like that's
yeah,
actually not how they're just sort of these fleeting things in the wind, and so what this article was basically, Substack post was basically getting at is that if you're a creative working on creating stuff, but the stuff is like Instagram posts, TikToks, newsletters, tweets, LinkedIn posts, even YouTube
and it's
videos,
all little atoms. Yeah,
it's all these little snowflakes, these little atoms of thing. And everyone who does this very quickly realizes that it doesn't feel very meaningful. And the thing that does feel meaningful is things that have weight to them, like working on a dense, heavy kind of project. Like for example a book or like some sort of magnum opus or some sort of like docu series rather than just an individual like atomic video or whatever.
yeah,
When I read that I was like, oh, that's it. Like that also really resonated, because that feeling of on my YouTube channel, for example, I've been doing a series for the last like 5 years called Book Club, where every now and then I just do a summary of a book. And that feels really good, because I just happen to have arbitrarily said that there's a series called Book Club. So it feels like each
yeah,
video I'm making about the book is actually
yeah,
contributing to this larger whole, which in the
yeah,
grand scheme
yeah,
of things is of course totally meaningless. But there's something about
yeah.
just calling it Book Club that feels good. There's something about
Right.
working on individual blog posts that I know are going to ladder up to a book that is going to
Yeah.
be bound and that I can like hold in my hand. That
Mm.
feels way more meaningful than
Yeah.
writing individual blog posts.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of it is maybe a microcosm of this general idea that like the feeling of meaning and fulfillment comes from this sort of where the individual actions you're taking feel as if they're
Yeah.
adding up to something. There's
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
sort of arc,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
some sort of arc there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the narrative thing is big, um, and yeah, I think that Alistair McIntyre and Charles Taylor are really big on this as well, about like human life fundamentally having a sort of narrative nature, where we can like only really make sense of, you know, we can't make sense of our lives as like just a sequence of like events. We The only way we can really make sense of our lives is as like a sort of single coherent narrative. And I think when we feel like when we're doing stuff that, well, I guess you kind of need some sense of like the guiding arc of that narrative. And then like, I think when we do stuff, when let's say like you look back on the last year and you're like, oh man, like that stuff was all kind of pointless. Like the reason you think it's kind of pointless is because like either you're missing the kind of broader narrative arc, or like maybe you have that narrative arc but you're like, yeah, this doesn't really fit in with that narrative.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not super well versed in their views on the narrative nature of the self or whatever, but yeah, I think it seems to be
Nice.
legit.
Okay, I feel like that's a good place to end this. I have a date night, speaking of narrative arcs. So
Nice.
good luck with the allergen testing. Say hi to Lucia, and I'll see you later.
All right, will do. All right, see you, man.
Bye.